lecture said, "I cannot express strongly enough my horror at this appalling act." Mrs. Gandhi called an emergency cabinet meeting this morning to discuss the killing and sent a personal message of condolence to the dead man's widow, saying, "The entire nation is aghast at this cowardly and brutal outrage." Ravinder Mahtray, who was 48, served at the Indian High Commission in Birmingham. He'd been in Britain for only 18 months and didn't have police protection. Since his disappearance on Friday, 20 people have been interviewed by the police, but no arrests have been made. This from Jackie Ashley.
Ravinder Mahtray left his office at the Indian High Commission in the centre of Birmingham at 5 o'clock on Friday evening. His route home involved a 40-minute bus ride to the suburb of Berkeley Green, 5 miles southwest of the city and 40 miles from Hinckley, where his body was found. He was seized in a street near his home, according to a passer-by.
We have traced a witness who saw a commotion, a struggle, when a man was forcibly put into a motor car and the car drove off quickly without lights.
By 7 o'clock, when he'd still not returned home, Mr. Mahatra's wife alerted the police and the High Commission. Local hospitals were checked to make sure he'd not been in an accident. At midnight on Friday, a package was delivered to Reuters, the Fleet Street news agency, from the previously unknown Kashmir Liberation Army. They claimed responsibility for the kidnapping and threatened to kill Mr. Mahtray. They wanted 7 Kashmiri prisoners being held in India to be released, and a ransom of £1 million from the Indian government. The deadline was set for 7 p.m. the following day. They also telephoned Zubair Ansar of the Kashmir Liberation Front.
That sounded serious. One of them was so aggressive at the time when he was speaking to me, and he said, "Unless you do something, we will do the same to you." And I reported immediately to the police. But they had threatened me. If I don't mediate or if I don't act as they wish, they would do the same to me as they've done with the Indian diplomat. Here again, it looks. The police didn't take it seriously.
The police say the kidnappers made no official contact with them, and they didn't tap Mr. Ansari's phone until the Saturday afternoon. Then came another call complaining of no progress and warning, "Now you will have to see and face the consequences." 24 hours later, at 10 o'clock last night, Mr. Mahatra's body was found on an isolated farm track near Hinckley in Leicestershire by a farmer and his wife returning home. He'd been shot, and police are not yet sure whether he was murdered at the scene or killed somewhere else and his body dumped there.
Since the partition of the Indian subcontinent in 1947, Kashmir has been a point of friction between India and Pakistan. Muslim-majority Kashmir decided to join Hindu-dominated India and not Muslim Pakistan. The picturesque mountain state has been fought over twice since then. The bitter Indo-Pakistan War of 1965 centred on the problem of Kashmir, with both countries claiming it. Following a UN-organised ceasefire, the then leaders of India and Pakistan, Mr. Shastri and President Ayub Khan, met under Soviet sponsorship to reach agreement. A full ceasefire followed in the early 70s, with 2/3 of the country in Indian hands and 1/3 under Pakistani control. Since then, most Kashmiris seem to have accepted the state will remain with India, although some Muslim extremists have called for independence. For many years, Kashmir was governed by the charismatic Sheikh Mohammed Abdullah, the Lion of Kashmir, who negotiated a special form of local autonomy. On his death at the end of 1982, he was replaced as leader of the National Conference by his son. Last June, Dr. Farooq Abdullah led his party to victory over Mrs. Gandhi's Congress party in the state. The Congress party is never pleased to lose a state government to the political opposition, and Delhi commentators have suggested it may have been engineering disruption in Kashmir. There have even been suggestions that the Indian government might have to rule the state from Delhi if political unrest continues. Government politicians have claimed the support in Kashmir for pro-Pakistani groups. Today, Mrs. Gandhi's son said in an interview with the Financial Times that Pakistan might invade India through Kashmir. Some commentators see the hand of isolated Pakistani extremists in yesterday's killing. Suggestions of independence for Kashmir are unwelcome in Delhi. Mrs. Gandhi already faces Sikh agitators who want more independence for the Punjab, and last year's unrest in Assam led to calls for independence there. With Indian elections to be held within the next year, Mrs. Gandhi has to reckon with opposition governments in many states eager for more independence from Delhi. It's not the first time Birmingham has seen protests about Kashmir. In 1965, Kashmiri residents Now the Pakistani section of Kashmir called for a plebiscite on the future of the state. Today, Zubair Ansar of the Kashmir Liberation Front in Birmingham denied any links with the kidnappers.
Jammu Kashmir Liberation Front does not believe in this sort of actions. We believe firmly in the use of political means.
And you condemn the murder of Mr. Mahtray?
I don't approve such actions.
You condemn all violence, is that correct?
We don't approve any violence.
And your organisation has never been involved in any violence in its history?
Never in its history. Since the very formation in 76.
Do you think that the KLA will stop here?